Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the press briefing on the work of the Foreign Affairs Council in Trade Formation. Vice Minister Notis Mitaraiki will brief you on the work of the Council, and then Commissioner de Gucht will also brief you, and we will take your questions. Minister, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to the press conference of the Foreign Affairs Council on trade issues held today under the chairmanship of the Hellenic Presidency. We had a quite heavy agenda which focused on developments on trade-related issues and in particular on progress in negotiation with the EU's key trading partners, notably Canada, Japan and the US. As you know, the Hellenic Presidency has set as one of its key priorities the promotion of growth and the creation of jobs, and these agreements, once concluded, are expected to contribute significantly to these goals. More specifically, on Canada, the Council was briefed by the Commission on the progress in the finalization of the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA. As Presidency, and on behalf of the Council, I would like to highlight that the Council took note of the information provided by the Commission and the comments made by delegations regarding the progress achieved on the main technical issues still pending concerning the text of the agreement. The Council expects to receive the complete finalized text of the agreement as soon as the technical discussions will be concluded, in time to scrutinize them before they are initialized. On Japan, the Council took note of the Commission oral report on the fulfillment of Japan's commitment on the elimination of non-trade barriers and opening up of the government procurement, as well as the progress made in the EU-Japan FTA negotiation, and I will allow the Commissioner to expand on this further. In view of the absence of the assessment by the Commission, the Council only held an initial exchange of views. Discussion will be taken forward as soon as we have the written assessment by the Commission within the Trade Policy Committee with a view to its prompt conclusion. On the Doha Development Agenda, the Council had an exchange of views on the basis of a note from the Commission on the EU post-Bali agenda following the WTO MC9 Ministerial Conference held in 2013. We adopted conclusions on a multilateral green goods initiative, welcoming the announcement made by 14 WTO members in Davos on the 24th of January 2014 on achieving global free trade in environmental goods and calling for a rapid start of negotiations as the first step in a process towards a multilateral outcome. The Council adopted negotiating directives on these environmental goods in order to guide the Commission on these negotiations. Over lunch, we had the opportunity to have an exchange of views on progress on the TTIP negotiation with the US on a basis of an update provided by Karel de Gucht. On this context, I would like to remind you that TTIP is a first-line priority for the Hellenic Presidency. On March, I had the opportunity to come to Brussels during the official visit of President Obama and participate as a speaker in the conference organized by the American Chamber in the EU in order to promote in the business community, but also to all stakeholders, the positive parameters of TTIP. The Hellenic Presidency also supported the promotion of a new comprehensive financial regulation dealing with ISDS issue, and we are very happy to see that this regulation, now agreed, can contribute as a solid base for the stipulation to be included in all future EU FTAs. On TTIP, we have had 4 negotiating rounds since July 2013 and a 5th one to start on the week of May 19th. I would also like to recall that the US-EU summit held in March reaffirmed the commitment of both sides to a successful conclusion of this negotiation. Finally, under the any other business topic, the Council took stock of progress in negotiations on economic partnership agreements, the EPAs, focusing on those closest to finalization with the West Africa, the East African Community, and the South African Development Community. The Council, finally, took note of issues relating to the extension of trade preferences to Croatia by third countries that have free trade agreements with the EU and supported the Commission in moving swiftly forward to support the conclusion of this framework. I give the floor now to Commissioner de Gucht.
Thank you for your overview. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We have had good discussions today which have focused on a number of trade negotiations, Japan, Canada, United States, and we also had a look at the post-Bali agenda, especially the ongoing work at boosting green trade around the world. On Japan, as you know, we held a successful summit with our Japanese partners yesterday, and let me be very clear, we do not have news for you yet on the outcome of the one-year review of negotiations so far. The Commission is currently working on this report, and I hope to have this completed by June, so that we can report back to member state governments through one of the regular Trade Policy Committee meetings still within the Greek presidency. On a very general note, yesterday's summit recalled the need for a high level of ambition in this negotiation and the need for this ambition to be matched with real action by our Japanese partners. I can only agree with this assessment. On Canada, I know there was a great deal of expectation at my meeting yesterday with Canada's Trade Minister Ed Fast in Paris on the sidelines of the OECD meetings would lead to the EU-Canada trade deal negotiations being concluded. As you know, there was a political breakthrough some months ago with an agreement in principle on CETA between the Canadian Prime Minister and European Commission President Barroso. But to be quite frank, final technical discussions have proven to be more difficult than originally foreseen. This is simply the nature of trade negotiations. Any negotiations, in fact, it really isn't over until it's over. But rest assured, we'll get there in the coming weeks, and when we do this, this will be an extremely important deal for both the economies of Europe and Canada. Of course, time will still be needed for consultation with our member state governments and for Canada with their provinces before we can begin the ratification process. Let me remind you that the EU-Canada agreement will remove over 99% of tariffs between the two economies and create sizable new market access opportunities in services and investment. In the area of public procurement, Canada has not only taken commitments at the federal level, but also opened its sub-federal level to European bidders to an extent never done before, thereby creating unique new opportunities. And amongst the many benefits, the agreement will also improve the protection of intellectual property rights in Canada, as well as the protection of the names of our flagship agriculture products. Once implemented, the agreement is expected to increase two-way bilateral trade in goods and services by 23% or 26 billion, fostering growth and employment on both sides of the Atlantic. The overall benefits of the agreement are expected to raise to the level of the EU's annual GDP by approximately 12 billion a year. On TTIP, over lunch we discussed the latest state of play in TTIP. This week I was in Berlin for a very important conference hosted by Vice Chancellor Gabriel. It was very useful as it allowed the German government to renew very clearly its support for TTIP and to help dispel some of the myths surrounding the negotiation. I have never tried to suggest that this negotiation would be anything but tough, but I'm starting to see progress, especially when it comes to Europe's insistence that there be a high level of ambition. I would like to keep you to that, President. If there are a couple of questions, I will try to answer to them.
Hello, Maria Knyazeva, News Agency, RIA Novosti. Maybe I've missed something, but maybe you can give some comments, not about today's discussions, but about Russia, whether the negotiations about third energy package has started in the WTO dispute settlement procedure, and what is about the recycling tax, this dispute settlement procedure? Are you going to withdraw it? Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Carmen Pan from International News Services. I have two questions, one on Japan and one on Canada. On Japan, I was wondering if you can give a few examples of the progress made. Yesterday, President Barroso said there was some progress, and I was wondering if you can give a few examples of what that was, especially when it comes to the car industry that has very big concerns about it, and also if you can give some more ideas of what's still a big issue to be discussed. And on Canada, has there been any text release from October on? Because we know there's an agreement in place, or almost, but we don't know exactly what are still the difficult issues being discussed, and you know, what's kind of the timeline for it and things like that. We just know there's something in place, but we don't know too much of the content, and that's starting to become an issue in reporting. Thank you.
Hi, Linnae Kvanazimikwa, EU Trade Insights. Also on Canada, can you maybe tell us if the issue of this being a mixed agreement or not is going to be taken up to the European Court of Justice? And also, I think there might be a few concerns, member states asking if this agreement should be initialed before the end of the ISDS consultations on TTIP. Can you tell us more about this? Thank you.
Would you like to answer to this first round, and then we'll take a second round?
President? On Russia, what was precisely your question?
I've asked whether the bilateral negotiation between Russia and the European Union on the third energy packet concerning this dispute settlement procedure
There have been
started.
consultations, not negotiations, but consultations in Geneva, but without result. So we will now have to launch the case. Without result. Yeah. You mean on the recycling fee and so on? That's what you mean, eh? Huh? Yeah, you need first you need consultation.
The first one was about the third energy package, and the second was on recycling tax.
It's splitting the question into two. The first part of the question is, can you give an update on where we stand, given Russia has just announced it's taking us, the EU, to the WTO over the energy package? That's one question. And then a second question is an update in terms of the recycling fee issue that we've taken the Russians and where we're at on.
Here's my lifeline, you know. On the energy package, yes, they are going to take us to the WTO, so they will ask for consultations, no?
Yeah, we've just begun the consultation process.
So they have to follow the procedure. So first we will have the consultations, and then we will see what happens. And on the recycling fee, there the consultations have already taken place. So we now have to go officially to the WTO. So we have now to introduce the case. Huh? That's it. Huh? On Japan. You will allow me that I'm not too specific about the progress, but what I see is that the offers that they have been introducing on goods, they are not stunning, but they are at the level of what you would expect as a first offer in a negotiation. So on the NTBs, the 31 NTBs that had been identified, it's fair to say that there have been delivery, so that's a good omen. And let me give you an example on a specific question of you on automotive. They have agreed with the large majority of the UN ECE regulations. You know what it is, huh? I mean, it's about the technical specifications of in the automotive sector. So it's the UN Economic Council for Europe. That's the body that is producing, let's say, those regulations, and with the vast majority they have agreed as such, and on 4 ones they have specific questions that are now discussed in Geneva, which is which is really hinting in the right direction. Because once they adopt those regulations, it means that you don't have a separate testing on parts and components of our cars anymore in Japan, which is presently the case. Just to give you one example, but there are many others, you know. But I don't want to to give a lot of details on this because it's all part of a single undertaking, and if everybody starts giving too many examples of what they have been given in or got and so on, I mean, then it becomes difficult, no? On Canada, the timeline, I hope that we can finally conclude also the technical problems that are still on the table in the coming weeks. There are not that many anymore. There are 3, 4 that we still have to resolve. But a couple of them are a little bit thorny, so difficult to put a date on it. Is it a mixed agreement or not? Look, what happens is that you make an agreement. And then you say, this is the Sable text. That's what we have agreed. We then give it to the member states for a couple of weeks, 3, 4 weeks, so that they can, if need be, make comments. And then after a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we initial the deal. We put an initial on it. No? That's something that the Commission does. It's not an official act, but it means, okay, we both agree that this is what we have been agreeing, no? For whatever what it is worth. And on the mixity, you will have an opinion by the legal service of the Council and the legal service of the Commission. Legal service of the Council is the opinion that it is mixed. Of course, pending what will still be added to it as a result of the ongoing negotiations. And we are still awaiting for the legal opinion of our own legal service. And it means that at the moment of initialing, you will have to decide whether it's a mixed agreement or not. So that's a decision of our own that has nothing to see with Canada. But you will understand that I'm not going to pronounce myself on that unless our own legal service has given us guidance. So this is a normal procedure. I don't know why all of a sudden everybody is interested in mixed agreements and all that kind of things. And in ISDS, I mean, it's spring, you know. Why are you thinking about all those dull things? Think about other elements in nature. Huh? Okay. Then, so that's, I think I have tried to answer all the questions that were.
Just on the issue of Japan, we would hope, and that's what we had discussed with Commissioner de Gucht, that the Trade Policy Committee meeting on the 23rd of May would hopefully have the report of the Commission, subject to the time it takes to formulate. And of course, we all hope that everything will be acceptable and continue, but until we read the text, we can't know. On the case of Canada, just to mention that we understand there are still some issues that are pending to be discussed. It is the view of COREPER and of the legal service of the Council that it is a mixed agreement, given the original mandate given to the Commission and also given what we understand is included in this agreement. This is something that needs to be taken into account when it's initialized, so it's initialized in the proper form. And also the Council has asked and the Commission has assured Council that we will have sufficient time to scrutinize the text before it's initialized.
Matt Dalton with the Wall Street Journal. A question for Commissioner de Gucht about Ukraine. You've been helping prepare the Phase 3 sanctions on Ukraine should they be needed or deemed necessary. And I'm just wondering, is that planning complete? Is there a kind of package of sanctions that the Commission, economic sanctions, sector-wide sanctions that the Commission now has ready to place on Russia should, I guess, EU leaders or the higher-ups decide that that's necessary?
It's the Council that has to decide on sanctions. It's not the Commission. But yes, we have been putting time and effort to prepare all kinds of possibilities, no? And what would be the impact and so on and so on. That's of course a confidential document. And then it's up to to the Council to decide whether to implement or not, what to implement, when to implement. That's up to them. What I hope is that the situation is going to desescalate in the coming days. That's what I sincerely hope, you know. And probably a lot of members of the Council as well hope that.
Oui, Emmanuel Agri pour l'Agence Europe. Une toute petite question pour la présidence. En français, oui, désolé. Sur la partie des biens environnementaux, les conclusions en fait précisent qu'apparemment le Conseil a accepté de donner des directives de négociation donc à la Commission, et on parle d'une liste plus étendue de produits verts, plus étendue que les 54 qui sont prévus par l'APEC. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous donner éventuellement un ordre de grandeur de ces produits et éventuellement citer quelques-uns qui sont intéressants pour l'Union européenne pour des gains commerciaux? Merci.
Philip Langens of Reuters. Two questions. One about Japan. You're preparing, and you will have this report ready by the TPC meeting on the 23rd about the yearly review related to Japan. I just wondered whose decision will it actually be whether to continue with the negotiations? Is it the Commission's, or is it that the Commission makes a proposal that the Council then needs to vote on? So I'm just interested in the procedure there. And then just in terms of TTIP, you mentioned, for example, you say that there was a meeting in Berlin on Monday, and you said that part of the use of the meeting was to dispel some myths about TTIP. I just wondered, is your view that almost all the opposition to TTIP is like a misunderstanding of what is involved, presumably particularly on the investor-state dispute mechanism side, but or do you believe there are actually kind of fundamental issues at stake here?
Yeah, Rosa Jimenez for the Spanish News Agency EFE. Commissioner, could you give us an update of the negotiation with Mercosur, and if you think that the parts will be ready to exchange their first offers in early June? Thanks.
What was the previous question? On this gentleman.
Yeah, on TTIP essentially, and with your visit to Berlin this week, you referenced the myths around TTIP. Do you think that this is largely misunderstanding? What's the cause?
This concludes the questions.
What's the cause for this misunderstanding in your view?
It's just a short follow-up question on Canada. You mentioned 3-4 issues. Can you just give a few examples, or one or two of those that are still very hard to resolve? Thanks.
Hi, Masako Yoshirabe, Nikkei here. My question is to Commissioner Duff on Japan.
Can you give an example, a couple of examples in Canada where
Prime
you're
Minister
sticking
Abe
with
said
to decide
Japan wants to conclude this negotiation in the course of 2015. Do you share this idea, or you don't think you should not, set the timeline? And secondly, if I may, can you give us comment on the railway, if possible?
On the what?
Railways.
that you
On
should
railways.
Andreas Say from Interfax Europe. On TTIP, has it actually been agreed that there will be a chapter on ISDS, or how far are you from an agreement? Thank you.
Okay. The points on Canada, that what you call sticky points, it's they're really technical stuff, For example, how do you manage TRQs, tariff-rated quotas? Are you doing that on the basis of licenses, or first come, first served? How do you make sure that it spreads over a number of countries, and the technicalities of that, by the way, rather being within DG Agri than with myself, but that's what it is about, that kind of things, and that takes time. The green goods, yes, the idea is that it would, of course, include more goods. There are, in APEC, there are 54, if I'm not mistaken. So the list would be considerably longer. In APEC, it's also limited to goods. And the idea is that in the Green Goods Initiative, we'd also speak about services. By the way, this is a sector where a large part of, let's say, the turnover are services. And the level of ambition is also higher because in APEC, the level of ambition was to get to 5%, and here the level of ambition is to go to 0%. So this is much more foregoing. On the review, we are really working on that, you know. So we will report to the TPC the 23rd, and then we will come to a conclusion in the Commission. Who has to decide? The Commission. It's a Commission that has put in the mandate that after 1 year we would come back with a report to them, and that if we were of the opinion that they did not fulfill the conditions, that we would suspend the negotiations. So it's in fact an internal decision of the Commission, but it's of course that you politically discuss it with the Council. That's something else, but technically it's the Commission. On Berlin, there were very good meetings in Berlin. I mean, not only the public meetings were good, but I also met with people in the trade unions, in the Verbraucherschutzorganisationen, so the consumer organizations, with political groups in the parliament, and I think it has been very useful that it has shed a different light on a number of topics, and I'm very pleased with that. It was also very well covered by the press in Germany. So this was a high-level event that I believe was very useful. I believe that a lot of this has to see with misunderstandings. But of course, to make away with misunderstandings on topics that are not every day on the minds and the souls of the people, I mean, that's not very simple. So you need to invest some time and effort into that, and that's what we are doing. Mercosur, no further evolutions for the time being. Japan, the timeline, we'll do our best to do it as soon as possible. Would it be finished next year? Yes, you can finish that next year, provided that you share the goal of doing it and you put in the necessary time, effort, negotiating effort, and so on and so on. So it's a deal that is feasible, that I'm very much convinced of. And then your question, will there be an ISDS chapter in the TTIP agreements? You know that there is a public consultation. And we will revert to that topic on the basis of what has been gathered in the public consultation. So I'm not going to make statements now on this. By the way, I think that you understand this. You know, I mean, you can only strive, of course. I mean, okay, thank you very much.
And just to conclude on the green goods that have been asked, Council welcomed very much the initiative in Davos regarding the green goods initiative. The directive we gave today does not name any additional or specific products. It sets the objective, the process, and the goals that the Council has for this process. And as Commissioner De Gucht says, we hope that that will be an ambitious conclusion. Thank you also very much.
Thank you very much.
Progress in negotiation with the EU's key trading partners, notably Canada. The Council was briefed by the Commission on the progress in the finalization of the comprehensive Presidency, and on behalf of the Council, I would like to highlight that the Council took note of the information provided by the Commission and the comment made by the complete finalized text of the agreement as soon as the technical discussions will be concluded in conclusion. On the Doha development agenda, the Council had a ministerial conference held in 2013. We adopted conclusions on a multilateral green goods initiative, step in a process towards a multilateral outcome. The Council adopted negotiating directives on this environmental good, promote in the business community, but also to all stakeholders. On TTIP, we have had 4 negotiating rounds since July 2013, and a 5th one to start on the week of May. Call that the US-EU summit held in March reaffirmed the commitment of extension of trade preferences to Croatia by third countries.
There was a political breakthrough some months ago with an agreement in principle on CETA between the Canadian Prime Minister and European Commission President Barroso. But to be quite frank, final technical discussions have proven to be more difficult than originally foreseen to European bidders to an extent never done before, thereby creating unique new opportunities. And amongst the many benefits, it was very useful as it allowed the German government to renew very clearly its support for TTIP and to help this.
Sites. Also on Canada, can you maybe tell us if the issue of this being a mixed
official act, but it means, okay, we both agree that this is what we have been agreeing. No?